Live the Goals Podcast, your place for motivation, life lessons, and laughter. Don't settle for wandering through a mundane life. Instead, let us help you reach your goals and live a fulfilling life doing what you love. Our guests know what it's like to live with purpose and laugh along the way. Warning, if you're a stick in the mud, you definitely need to stick around. Loosen up your ties, kick off your high heels, and let's get to it with your host, Dale Richardson.
All right, friends and family, we are back with another great guest. Today's guest is Nitin Chhoda, and Nitin began his entrepreneurial journey at the age of 14, right? He was selling Coca-Cola bottles, for those of you that are too young to remember, there were bottles, and he would return the bottles back to the store to earn back the deposit. Now, he really is the American dream, everybody. He arrived in the United States with no money in a post-9/11 world. Now, in the past, he's worked as a waiter in restaurants where he had to wait to eat until after the guests left, since he couldn't afford to buy his own meal. He slept in his car since he couldn't afford to pay rent. And so he really does understand, friends and family, struggle and obstacles. Now, today, he owns several businesses that collectively gross in the high seven figures. Woo! He flies business class around the world and runs a team of remote employees also around the world, all of whom, I love this part the most, all of whom live life on their own terms. So, Nitin, I have just introduced you, given kind of the boilerplate intro of who you are. I'm ready to get this running. Are you ready to help us set and reach goals that matter?
Yes, I am.
Well, Nitin, I'd love for you to expand on this definition, this bio, this kind of, the business version of who you are. I want to know a little bit more about you as a person.
I'm 39 years old. I live in New Jersey with my wife and my 2-year-old son. I moved to the US, actually, as you said, when I was 24 in 2002 in a post 9/11 world. And I got to tell you, Dale, I mean, I've been through a lot, and I'm sure we can get into that. But I want to start by saying just one thing. Mm-hmm. And I this may sound a little cliched, but I think everyone listening, especially if you live in the United States of America, thank your lucky stars, because the US is the greatest country in the world. I say that because I believe that with every fiber of my being. I am the American dream. I've gone from, living in my car, having no money for food. I can't tell you about the number of times I was, alone, besides myself, desperate, lonely, financially, you could use the word destitute. And now here I am. This is my home office basement. I mean, you can see, I'm working from home. This is where I work. I have employees who work from home. We run several businesses all out of literally this home office. I actually haven't even met half my staff.
Wow.
I'm planning on, I guess you could say that's a good thing, but I'm going to organize some sort of a big vacation and some sort of a big get together where we all, get together and I cover all the expenses. So for me to be able to achieve this, I think I owe it, partly to my hard work, luck, this, that, and the other, but to a large extent, to the fact that America rewards entrepreneurship, regardless of, whatever one might feel, regardless of race, religion. America rewards entrepreneurs, and America, I believe, is the greatest country in the world, and I'm here to start on that note.
Wow, that is an awesome note to start on. I'm going to come back to that because I think that's a great place for us to start digging into kind of goals and success and in this country. But I have to start the interview with what I do for each of my guests is I ask you to share something with us, a funny story or something that made you laugh recently. I want to make sure we remember that, life is a journey. There's ups and downs. You got struggles like you've been through. And so when we find those opportunities to laugh, let's jump onto them. Let's laugh and let's share that with the world.
I have a 2-year-old son. His name is Krish, and he's starting to learn language. And a lot of kids, and I know parents out there will identify with this. A lot of kids, they learn the word no. So my son, pretty much everything I tell him, everything I say, he goes, no. And then he's now started saying something interesting. So again, this goes back to, kids born and raised in America. I wasn't born and raised in America. My son's 2 years old, goes to daycare, comes home, gets fed, literally gets fed by my 72-year-old mother who lives with us because she's, the doting grandmom, has his own iPad, watches at least an hour of cartoons every day, Daniel Tiger. And now he's gotten to a point where he actually feels entitled. He goes, I need that. I need that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? He goes, Daniel Tiger, I need that. And then he looks at a glass of water. He goes, I need that. So I think that's very funny because I think kids at a very early age pick up on what's around them, whether it's abundance, whether it's negativity, whether it's parents sort of arguing. Kids pick up on all that stuff, and I think that's very funny and very profound. In fact, when I introduced myself to you, because I reached out to you and influencers like you, I actually said that I see my son as my mentor in a way. So he's 2 years old, Dale. The simplicity with which kids look at life is just fascinating because at the end of the day, I think we as adults, we make life a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. Fundamentally, life should be simple. Business should be simple. Business is fundamentally about offering more value, getting more customers, selling more stuff to make more money, and then reducing unnecessary expenses, reducing waste, and saving money. That's how you make more, you spend less, you make a profit. Fundamentally, things should be simple. And I hope this answers your question, but I think looking at life through the lens of a 2-year-old is both funny and amazingly sort of simple and gives you a sense of clarity.
Yeah, and sometimes I think the funny of that comes from how complicated it is in your mind, and then you hear the 2-year-old say it, and you're like, I mean, that really is it, right?
Correct.
One thing I want to jump into is what you mentioned, and so I'm going to throw something out there, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And I think you've kind of breached the subject already. So my mother is Korean. She immigrated to the United States, and I've come in contact with a lot of other people who are first generation Americans, right? So the children, like your son, right, who were born in the States, whose parents were not born in the States. Mm-hmm. What I think I see when dealing with those children is that there is in their mind a closer connection to the level of opportunity that is in this country, as well as the level of work that is required from you to make sure you take advantage of those opportunities. So that's kind of my hypothesis that in meeting folks and I've taught a little bit. So in meeting students whose parents weren't from this country, they always seem to be the ones that took it a little more seriously. It seems like this slight little mind shift where they're more tied into what this opportunity might mean than the people who have the opportunity, will take advantage of a lot of the opportunity, but don't really feel like it's right there in their hand. Am I just on cloud nine here, or do you think there's something there?
No, Dale, here's why you're 100% right. Now think about it this way. You go to the gym, you lift weights, or you prepare to run for a marathon, your endurance increases, your strength increases. I think human psychology, I call it the human condition. The human condition is such that the more you struggle, the more resilient you become. This doesn't just apply to, cardiovascular fitness or muscle strength. I mean, I'm a physical therapist, so, I was conditioned on understanding human physiology, but human psychology, especially the human brain, brain cells can actually adapt and change regardless of age. Obviously, your ability to learn is greater when you're younger because your brain cells are so rapidly evolving. So you're right, not only because we see this around ourselves, but because scientifically, the more struggle one goes through, whether it's being forced to do chores, whether it's being forced to, work, flip burgers while you're in college, whether it's, having less fancy stuff than the next kid. The next kid has the iPhone 7 Plus and you have, an outdated phone. Heck, you have a flip phone. You go to school in a bus while the kid next to you drives up in, sort of a fancy schmancy sports car. I think the more you struggle, and the more you have to fight for things, the more you tend to appreciate it. And I think fundamentally, immigrants like myself, right? I spent the first 24 years of my life in India. When I moved to the US, I mean, I was just blown away by the level of abundance. And I felt, and I know I have to earn it. So for me, my psyche is, let's say I make money in my business. I'm not going to be like, hey, let's buy a new car. Let's buy a fancy chandelier. Let's buy this, I don't know. Let's do this, that, and the other. I actually look at that money and think of it as a vehicle to make more money in my existing business or even start a new business. And so, I think for someone who's born and raised in the US, I think because you haven't seen the amount of struggle people go through, because you haven't experienced poverty, hunger, desperation, fear to the extent that some other people have. I think that honestly, that tends to, that makes you less competitive in a sense. So I think the way we can deal with that as Americans, and again, I'm not speaking in a vacuum. My son is 2 years old. I want him to go through this, right?
Right.
Go through this too. I want him to struggle. I don't want him to get everything he wants. Heck, if he's 16 and I can afford a car for him and I can afford his full college education, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, hey man, go out there and earn it yourself. Dad, I need a car. Sure. Work for three summers leading up to college, save up enough money and buy a $1,500 car. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So heck, by the time he's 15, he probably won't need a license. He'll probably push a button and
he'll be there.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure licenses will become redundant because he push a button, but he has to afford that damn thing. Yeah. And guess what? He's going to have to, save his own money. So I think that travel is important. Experiencing other cultures is important. And I think that if you haven't traveled, if you haven't seen and experienced life in other countries, you haven't sort of really understood what it means to struggle. And so I think that is something that puts, that, and that, by the way, when that goes to the one extreme, that leads to entitlement, that leads to a sense of privilege, that leads to, hey, I don't have the iPhone 7 Plus, woe is me. Come on, man.
Yeah. So, it's what we call first world problems, right?
Well, yeah, you actually summarized it in one sentence.
my iPhone is it's 2 seasons behind, so I've got issues. Wow. And it's funny. What just came to mind, there's a show out called Blackish, which kind of talks about that similar concept of people who kind of struggled, but now their children have it better than they did. And that balance and that tension between, I want you to have a better life than I had, but I also think there's something valuable in the way that I grew up, and I don't want you to miss that and take that for granted as well.
I think fundamentally every generation, I can speak for myself compared to my parents. My mom never had a cell phone. She actually doesn't have a cell phone to this day. She's 72 years old. My son will probably have some sort of a machine, maybe even hopefully not embedded in his head.
Right.
He's probably going to be able to walk around with a hat and he's like, call Amy, and then the hat calls Amy. So I think every generation has, quite frankly, a higher standard of living. I haven't said this. This is from Warren Buffett, an investor that I admire and that I copy his entire investment philosophy. But every generation sort of lives a higher standard of life from a comfort standpoint, from a technology standpoint, from a material things standpoint. But the question is, mentally, are you getting tougher or are you getting weaker? And I think that's directly proportional to how much you've struggled. And again, I think it comes down to parenting, Dale. As a parent, I'm pretty tough with my son, and I intend on being tough with him, not because I'm some sort of a crazy guy who loves, troubling, sort of having my son struggle, but because I'm doing him a favor. I'm doing him a favor by having him struggle, by having him go through things. Even though I love him unconditionally, part of the love is putting him through situations where he has to struggle.
That's powerful. And so, we've talked a little bit, and I want to make sure, friends and family, you get that we're talking relative, right? I mean, we're not saying everybody in this country or that country or we're not saying that, but there does seem to be some correlation there. And so that's what we were really getting into, is what is that correlation that's there? I'd love to know more about that time of struggle, right? In your intro, we talked about you having to sleep in your car and working and not having the money for food. And then we've gone on to talk about how struggle makes you more resilient. So I'd love to hear a little more about what it felt like in that time while you were going through it. And then maybe a little bit about looking back, how it looks from the perspective of looking back at it.
I think, Dale, we all go through experiences in life that test us. Some experiences bring us close to our breaking point, and some experiences do actually break us. The scientific meaning of the word stress is that, your body experiences something that, it makes it uncomfortable. Now, the right amount of stress. So there's like a stress curve, right? The right amount of stress can actually lead to an increase in your emotional capabilities, can drive you. The right amount of stress is actually called EU stress. That's EU stress. So think of it this way. You're preparing for a marathon and, you're sort of, running on a treadmill and you want to it's motivating you enough so that you complete the marathon. But what if you had an excessive amount of stress? An excessive amount of stress can lead to a decrease in your capabilities. It's called distress. It's when you feel the whole world's against you, when you feel that you can't keep up, when you feel depressed, overwhelmed, you lash out at the world. And again, we're all human, right? So I think every individual's ability to handle stress is a little bit different, depending on what you're made of, depending on what you've been through. And so for me personally, I've been through several situations that I'm not going to say almost broke me. They broke me. They actually broke me in two. There was one experience back in 2004 when my father passed away in India. I was in the US. I didn't have the money to actually fly back home. I didn't have the money to buy a ticket to fly back home. B, even if I had to, even if I could, which maybe I could have borrowed the money. My mother at that time, and if you know anything about Indian culture, you know that when a parent passes, Indian culture requires the eldest son, which is me, I have a younger brother, the eldest son to participate in the cremation. My mother actually said to me, hey, listen, stay in the US, because I was sort of getting my green card at the time, resident card, and I was in a situation from an immigrant standpoint where if I flew out of the country, I would actually not be able to fly back to the country because my immigrant status visa was, in process.
Right.
For it to remain in process, I had to remain in the country where it was submitted for processing, which was the US. So I actually made a choice to remain in the US, A, because I couldn't afford the ticket back home, B, more importantly, because, I wanted to build a better future for myself in America. For me, that was a situation that broke me because I couldn't participate in the cremation of my own father. That was one example. Another example was a few years ago, my business almost went bankrupt. I was on the verge of a complete financial bankruptcy. I managed to get out of both situations. We can discuss how, but you wanted me to share my breaking point, I believe, right? That's what I wanted to share with you. We've all been through that. I'm sure everyone listening has been through their own breaking points. The question you need to ask yourself is, what do you do when you're at that breaking point? Do you lash out at the world? Do you blame the world? Or do you, and this is what helped me, do you find the right people to help you? Because we all need help, Dale. Yeah. We all need help, whether it's a family member who believes in you, whether it's your other half who supports you, whether it's a sibling who's always there to listen to you. It could be an uncle, an aunt, your parents. This doesn't really matter. We all need to find the right people. In my case, I actually didn't know anybody at the time. I didn't, but I was actually still able to. In 2004, I was able to get through it essentially by myself. But in 2010, when I went through almost going through bankruptcy, I was able to talk to friends and financial advisors who helped me get out of the mess. So having the right people around you, Dale, is so important, especially for an entrepreneur, especially for someone who's looking to climb, because you can't climb by yourself.
Yeah.
You need to be able to rely on other people, whether they're people who just listen to you and talk to you as friends, family, or whether they're people you pay to give you professional advice. If someone's giving you good professional advice and they're like You got to pay me $500 to talk to you for 30 minutes. You should be like, how fast can I sign this check?
Yeah.
Because the right advice is crucial in the world that we live in. There's so much noise. There's so much clutter. There's so many, people who will advise you, but the right advice is something that can change your life personally and professionally.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about going through those challenges and kind of what it was like when you're going through them. Looking back at them, what lessons did you draw from them? I know you kind of gave us some of that about how it builds resiliency and how do you look at the world. But personally for you going through those situations, were there some lessons you pulled out of those specific situations?
Two lessons in particular. Number one, whenever you're in a situation where where things look hopeless, ask yourself, what is the single best thing I can do in this situation? What's the one thing I can do? For example, when I was financially bankrupt, I said to myself, what's the one thing I can do? I can pick up the phone, email all my existing clients and try and sell them more stuff. Try and sell them something that, that is sort of that sort of complements what they've already bought from me. So I was able to raise cash that way. The other thing is always have some sort of an advisor or a mentor or some sort of a business coach that you can rely on that will, help you navigate those difficult situations. So, I would say when you're in a difficult situation, stop looking within. Look outside, build a network, whether it's, going out to events and meeting people, whether it's hiring a business coach, or whether it's simply, reading books. I think reading books is a very important part of self-empowerment and self-confidence. Having a high degree of self-confidence, Dale, is very important because it's your self-confidence that's going to get you through tough situations. And I think the reason one person can handle a huge amount of problems. Another person freaks out when they see the smallest problem is because this person has either been through life situations that have impacted their confidence or has sort of, not surrounded themselves with the kind of people that can give them that confidence. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think you're right on point. So yeah, please continue.
No, I was saying that the surround yourself with people who give you confidence. Invest in interactions with people who give you confidence, whether it's attending an event, watching videos on YouTube that's free, buying books, buying bestsellers and reading them. Challenge yourself to a higher standard. And that doesn't, I know that sounds nice, but the only way you really do that is if you look up at people. I mean, I look up to people like Richard Branson, Elon Musk, the late Steve Jobs. I look up to these people. I've read their books. I watch how they do things, and that's what gives me. That's what makes me feel like I constantly up my game.
Yeah, and so you've been absolutely pouring into our friends and family here with just tremendous life lessons about life in general, about struggle. I want to know a little bit more about you on the business side, right? I'd love to know what some of your big goals are, or the big goal is right now for you. And the reason I'm doing this is because, I want to make sure that the people that are listening in varying degrees of success right now, that they all get something, right? And so you've got people that are struggling. I think I hope they have clearly heard your message today if they're in the midst of that struggle right now. But for people that have reached a level of success, I want them to hear the types of goals that you're setting to make them think about the fact that they need to maybe reach a little higher or set higher goals.
Yeah, it's a good point. I actually wrote a book called Total Activation. And that's our website where we have, our skincare and nutrition products. We can talk about that later if you want me to, or if you decide I should or shouldn't. That's up to you. But I feel that I can speak from my experience. There was a period in my life where I judged my self-worth, Dale, by how much money I made. And I'm not ashamed of it. It's just who I was at the time. I think all of us have what I call evolving relationships with money.
Yeah.
Dale, all of us know people in our life who I call have a poverty consciousness. A poverty consciousness is, somebody who thinks it's criminal to, fly business class or it's, rich people are bad, or someone who's always thinking of, pinching the pennies and saving. Now, that's not a bad thing. It's just who they are.
Right.
I think people with a wealth consciousness, they think of making a lot more money and then spending it where it helps improve their lifestyle. I mean, I'm sure they don't want to waste money, but people with what I call a wealth consciousness think of, making more, offering more value so that they can, create exponentially more wealth for themselves. So for everyone out there who's reached a stage where you're no longer motivated by money. Okay. I would say that there are 5 aspects of the human condition that you should focus on improving. It's something I am working on every day as well, and that's what the book is about. I call it the EPSSI principle. EPSSI. E for emotional health. Do things that make you happy. Whether it's, spending time with your loved ones, or whether it's, going on a vacation, going for a drive. Heck, what makes me happy is there's a yogurt land around the corner. I swing by there once in a while and I get coconut ice cream. I'm sorry, coconut yogurt. Oh man, I could die. I'm probably going to go get some after the interview. I put some chocolate chips in it and I put some shredded coconut in it.
Oh, that sounds good.
Honestly, yeah, exactly. That gives me more happiness than, I don't know, spending $500 on the best meal I've ever had in Vegas or whatever. So simple things in life make you happy.
Yeah.
Or what makes me happy, honestly, is I'm a geek. Weekends, I just lay on my couch and I watch Netflix on my phone. And it's as geeky as it gets, but that's what makes me happy. So, so my son's playing, my wife's like, you need to go to Costco. I'm like, no, I'm watching this movie. It's the weekend. I'm just chilling. So do things that emotionally make you happy. E for emotional, P for physical. Do something on a daily basis, whether it's going for a 10-minute walk or, take your vitamins and supplements, nutrition, or eat healthy. So E for emotional, P for physical. Focus on fitness and nutrition. Do the best you can. You don't have to go on a diet, go on a cleanse, or, run a marathon, run a half marathon. I did that a couple of months ago. So for me, I wanted to set a high physical goal for myself. S for social. Emotional, physical, social, spiritual, intellectual. Social. Surround yourself with people who make you happy. On the flip side, if there are people who make you unhappy, I call them energy vampires. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Guess what? Cut them out from your life. I'm sorry to say it, but cut them out from your life. It could even be a family member. I'm sorry, but if they make you unhappy, you know what? Don't drag yourself down, or don't let them drag you down. On the flip side, if someone makes you happy, pick up the phone and just reach out to them, text them, schedule some sort of, hey, let's meet up for coffee or something. Create, foster, and build connections with those who make you happy, and you know who they are, right? The S is for spiritual. If you're religious, by all means, be religious. Have some sort of a belief in a higher being other than just yourself. Pay it forward. Try and do things to add value to other people, whether it's working at the soup kitchen, whether it's, making a donation to charity. Spiritually, be more in tune with yourself. And finally, I for intellectual. Challenge your brain, whether it's reading a book, doing a crossword puzzle on the weekends, doing things that put you out of your comfort zone. I mean, everybody listening to this interview, hopefully you're getting some intellectual activation. Hopefully you're thinking, man, I didn't think of that before. Yeah. So at the end of the day, we're all motivated by money. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not lie. I'm still motivated by money. But for me, I've reached a point in my life where, if I don't work another day in my life, I'll still be able to pay my bills and then some. So for me, at this point in my life, I'm more focused on trying to improve myself emotionally, trying to improve myself physically, trying to improve myself socially, spiritually, and intellectually. And I believe that aspect of the human condition is going to stay constant 100 years from now. And that's what my book is about, total activation.
Yeah, and that in itself is such a big goal, to focus on that on a daily basis and to say, hey, I need to make sure I'm aware of this, I'm conscious of it, and that it's what I'm headed towards. And so I thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Surprisingly, this has gone a lot faster than I expected, and we're getting to the point where we kind of have to start wrapping up here. So I've got a couple things I always do to wrap up the interviews. And the first one is the hot seat scenario. So you ready to play the hot seat scenario?
Yes, sir.
All right. here we go. So you're going to have to choose between one of these two people. And then after you do that, you're going to have to just give me 1 or 2 steps to get this person pointed in the right direction, okay? Person A is somebody who is living check to check and works 40 to 50 hours. We'll call it a regular, quote unquote, regular work week. But is drained when they get home from work. And so they spend the next 2 or 3 hours just kind of vegging out, right? Watching TV or surfing the internet, social media, whatever the case may be. Person B is somebody who is living financially a pretty decent lifestyle. I mean, they're on salary. They work at a company. They're making maybe 100, 200,000. They feel okay with that. But it feels like he's working night and day. I mean, it feels like he wakes up, goes to work, comes home, goes to sleep, and just does it again. Now, neither one of these people is enjoying life. That happy you were just talking about, neither one of them is there. And they finally gotten to that point where they know something has to change. And so the question for you is, which one of these two people are you going to choose? And then what's the first step or two that you're going to take to kind of get this turned around?
Person number 1, and I actually know many people who fit that category. The first thing that I would ask that person is, do you want it badly enough? Because I know many people who are like person 1. And if I can be brutally honest, they complain about how things could be better. But then when I really ask them, hey, why don't you, do this or this or this or this, you know what, you work 9 to 6, right? And you want 2 hours to veg. Sure. Guess what? Now you can work 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. What's stopping you?
Right.
What's stopping you? So when I ask this question, inevitably, and these are the people I know, inevitably they're like, well, I got to wake up in the morning. I got to cook. I got to do this. I got to do that. Well, guess what? You don't want it badly enough. So I think I would pick person 1 and I would say, how badly do you want a better quality of life?
Wow.
How badly do you, how hard are you willing to push yourself? And I think the ones who are willing to push themselves right to the edge, right to the breaking point. I mean, don't get past the breaking point and don't go crazy, right?
Right.
The ones who are willing to push themselves right to the edge are the ones who change the world. The ones who want to stay within their comfort zone and leave a nice little cushion between where they are and where they want to be. So they dream about the other side. So they look at the greener pasture on the other side, but they're not willing to run across the pasture.
Wow.
They're the ones who stay where they are. And again, I know this sounds negative. It's not meant to be negative. You are who you are. But if you're going to bitch and moan about the other side of the lake and you're not going to swim to get there because you're saying I can't swim, then guess what? You don't deserve to get to the other side of the lake.
And these are hard discussions. Some of the things, and I mean, that's awesome advice for that person. And it just makes me think about, sometimes with coaching clients, having to ask that difficult question that you just asked. Do you actually really want this? Right? I mean, I understand you're saying you want it, but like the example you gave, if you're not willing to take the steps to get there, let's get real with ourselves. Maybe you don't want it. And then we can just stop talking about it and figure out what it is you really want. And let's go after that. Right. But at least we get out of this fantasy world if you're saying you want this, but doing nothing about it. And so that wasn't negative at all. That was just, having to get real with folks and saying, let's make a decision here.
And Dale, it's very, I mean, and I know we have to wrap up, so I'll be real fast.
No, you're good.
It's normal for a human being to remain within their comfort zone. Me, honestly, working in this home office basement, I'm in my comfort zone. I probably will never work in a traditional office 9 to 5 ever because this is me. This is who I am. But then within this comfort zone, I'm pushing boundaries. I mean, I'm talking to influencers like you, and hopefully, I'm adding value, and hopefully we'll be heard by a lot of people. Hopefully we're impacting lives. The problem is most people are so restricted in their comfort zone. They're so sort of in their cocoon that they're not willing to push themselves out of their comfort zone. And if you're not willing to push yourself, that's fine. More power to you. That doesn't make you a bad person or a coward. That's just who you are, right? But again, if you're not going to push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're not going to be able to be an entrepreneur. So for entrepreneurs are fundamentally unhappy with the way things are and want to introduce a way to do things differently. So if you're not an entrepreneur, that's fine. Work 9 to 5 and come home and veg for 2 hours and go to bed at 8. But if you're looking to make a difference, if you're looking to drive a nicer car, if you're looking to save for your kids' education, save for kids' college, if you're looking to, move to a bigger home, then you're gonna have to do things a little differently than you're doing now. Whether it's starting a new business, whether it's working a second job, whether it's going to your boss and saying, "Hey, I think I deserve to get paid more." Whether it's working overtime, you need to be able to want to do more, which is where the extra effort comes in.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been awesome. I appreciate you sharing so much value with our friends and family. Your story, really, that is the American dream, right? To come from zero, literally zero, to running a business or businesses that are creating a great lifestyle for you, as well as other people, and serving other people as well. So before we wrap up here, just need you to do two more things for us here. One, I absolutely want our friends and family to know how to get in touch with you. So I'd love for you to give us the name of the book again. Let us know where to find it. Let us know how we can get in touch with you. And then after you do that, kind of take us out with a quote or a mantra or a phrase or a thought, something you use to kind of get you over that little hump when you need that extra push. So tell us how we can get in touch with you and your book, and then give us that motivational quote or mantra.
I appreciate it. If all of you want to visit www.totalactivation.com, you can get our book there. You can get our skincare products and our nutritional supplements that work hand in hand with the philosophy of total activation, which is what I talked about earlier, the EPSSI principle. We've actually formulated a line of skincare products and nutritional supplements that work hand in hand to help bring out the best version of you, to sort of reinvent you from the inside out. If you send us a message through the contact us form on totalactivation.com and you mention Dale's name, you mention Dale Richardson, we will do two things for you. If you're a consumer, we'll give you a discount coupon so you can get our products at a discount. If you're an entrepreneur, and if you have any questions related to entrepreneurship, just mention Dale's name and my staff will actually forward that email to me. Wow. So if you need help with something, I will personally help you. How's that sound?
That is fantastic. Thank you. That is just an example of the type of people that we're interviewing here. I mean, after giving so much value, he's going to treat you all to a discount or advice straight from him. So make sure you take advantage of that. Friends and family, as you know, there'll be links to all of this in the show notes. So right below where you're watching this, just in case you're driving or something like that, you can make sure that you can get to all of that. I want to make sure you can get to his website. I want to make sure you can check out his books, his products, and give them all a try. So friends and family, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, as always, until next time, remember to set goals that matter, and more importantly, live the goals you set.
Thanks for checking out the show today, and make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. We hope you take away something that helps fill your life with purpose and laughter. And make sure you head over to LiveTheGoals.com for more info on guests and resources. Remember to set and reach goals that lead you to a life of purpose and passion.